Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening if you're on the other side of the pond. Welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm, a spin-off show of The Outer Realm, which airs on Wednesday and Thursday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from New Orleans. Man, been looking forward to, to this show. I love when Mike Arley comes on. I consider him to be so near and dear to me. And, we've often kind of sided off after the show on other little conversations. And we think about things. I think we should talk about this. We should talk about this. And this is like one of those things that we felt we should talk about. So this is an uncensored show of Beyond the Outer Realm. You guys know the drill as to, where to find the archive for an immediate replay. But it was one of those things where we thought, who the heck's really running this place? Meaning the world, of course. Who's really running the world? And we thought we would take a nice deep dive into secret societies and so on. And who better to do that with than, of course, Mark Olly. Oh, hey, Heidi. Hello. Yes. Thank you. I'm always grateful when Mark comes on and shares. So here we go. Hey, Carrie, how are you? Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
This is the show where we try to get banned. This is the one.
It's a good effort.
Yeah.
It's a good effort.
Oh, look, they're all coming in now. You can see they're itching to go.
It is. It's going to be a great show.
It's like people wanted to turn up for an execution, isn't it? Because we just don't know how long it's going to be before somebody cuts the feed. It's one of those.
Well, especially for you guys out in the UK.
Oh, don't even get me started on how bad it is out here. It's absolutely awful at the moment.
I know.
Terrible. Yeah, we're in the early onset phase of kind of communist censorship. We're starting to edge that direction. There's a clear vision for us to end up like China and places like that. We're going to finish up like North Korea. That's where we're going.
Yeah, we're not far behind you because you're
you're in Canada, aren't you? You're based in
your
Canada.
ex-banker is at our helm right now.
Yeah.
We know what he did to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave that right there. Yeah.
That's still trying to. Don't even get me started on digital ID and all that stuff. It's a whole other world.
And it is, which brings us, perfect timing for this segment, because who the heck really is running the joint right now? Who's running the world? Not, it's one of those things that are hidden in plain sight and not what it seems.
Well, yes and no. On the one hand, we're obviously going to talk about what you can see that is in plain sight. There's a whole string of names which will pop up during this conversation, I'm sure, of people that we know about. But then there's the men in grey. That's the other side of the coin. These faceless, nobody knows them, nobody has a name for them, we don't know where they are, and all the rest of it. But they do obviously exist. And I might read something later, because I'm not the only person now to start to think along those lines. But in the meantime, I will drop that in when we get an appropriate moment.
Well, believe me, there will be moments. If we have to do a part 2, we'll do a part 2. So, just relax.
If you're feeling confident, you want to do conspiracy theories, that's a whole other ball game, because anything from cloud seeding to, dare I say it, COVID. Right, there you go. That's got us banned straight away. Anything in those ballparks, go down that as you wish. But never know, it might pop up during this conversation.
You never know. You never know. So secret societies and private clubs just seem to be something that has been around for at least, I say at least, 150 years that we're aware of. And I'm sure even, beyond, if you're getting really into, how.
Well, yeah. As an archaeologist, the basis for secret societies goes back into the BC period.
Wow,
they had them in Babylon, they had them in Samaria, they had them in Egypt. It's just human nature to form a club.
Right.
It's just what we do.
Yeah. See, See, and it goes back way there.
Mm.
That's the show in itself because some believe that the whole, Babylonian thing it never really left. Ancient Babylon never really left with some of the
Well, because you started about 150 years ago. I would have started a little bit further back than that. I would have said maybe 300 years ago. Because
okay,
if you go back to the 1700s,
okay.
there was this whole thing of what they call a resurrectionist movement, where all of a sudden you get what we've got now. You get all the modern orders coming up. You get Druids, Freemasons, Templars, Rosicrucians, witches, wizards, you name it. All that thing just kind of
Mhm,
blooms, if you like, out of the end of the 1600s into the beginning of the 1700s.
mhm.
The original Hellfire Club was early 1700s, 1720s.
Oh,
Francis
okay.
Dashwood and all that lot down south. It was his group,
Yeah.
and they got together basically as a reaction to the Puritans, which were around beforehand. It's arguable actually that the Puritans might have been a society in themselves centered around Oliver Cromwell. It blurs. I'm going to
Mhm.
be really radical and say there's a real blurring between churchianity, which is Christianity as a club, and
Yeah.
what later on became the rest. Everybody else, all the other clubs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been in both, and I don't see any difference. That's firsthand.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of commonality there. But that's kind of, if you like, that's the seed bed, that's the fertilizer, that's the grow bag that everything's coming out of. That's the start of it all.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kinda crazy because even Illuminati, I think, was, like, in the 1700s, wasn't it? Mid to
Yeah.
late 1700s, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so,
And nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Oh, sorry, I had to say that for
no,
the
it's
Monty
true.
Python
Yeah.
fans. I don't know if you had Monty Python in America or Canada. Monty
Yeah,
Python's quite
yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah, I
Nobody
love Monty
expects the
Python.
Spanish Inquisition. They all turn up with the big hats and red.
Yeah.
Anyway, never mind.
No,
Yeah,
it's
they were
okay.
around as well.
I'm a total Monty Pythoner, so
Hey,
I love it.
hey, that was appropriately inappropriate then to put that out.
I know. Couldn't get away with some of that stuff nowadays, but,
Yeah.
you know,
No.
no,
Yeah.
being politically correct. So, okay, so we're getting into it's interesting to me, when we start getting into a lot of this and how some of it has resurfaced. Carrie makes an interesting observation here. No, Babylon is here. CERN is a modern picture of the Tower of Babel and the Tower of Babel, but there's a video that is floating out there where they're doing like a sacrifice
Mm.
right there in the courtyard of CERN,
Well, it's
essentially.
yeah, I get where she's coming from. It's the end of the day, it's man's attempt to reach God. That's
Yeah.
one aspect of Babylon. But the other aspect of Babylon, which is almost equally important, is man's attempt to unite man under one banner.
Yeah.
Because obviously Babylon's where all the languages get confused. If you know your Old Testament, they all get confused. They don't understand each other, and then they
Mhm.
all split up, scatter, and the tower's never finished. That's
Mhm.
the gist of the story. So it's those two factors, really. Good place to start. It's where I started way back in Babylonian times. So
Yeah.
that's still going on now. Absolutely. We're still trying to either reach God or be God, or whatever. That's still
Mhm.
going on. And we're still trying to unite the world under one banner, which I think the men in grey may have achieved, but it's just they don't want to tell anybody.
Right. Right. Yeah, so, I mean, you're getting into Babylonian, and let's talk about Saturn. The Saturn club, Saturn worship, the black cube, which shows up on all of these major,
Well,
shall we say,
yeah,
corporations.
it's all over the place. It's everywhere. It
Yeah,
depends what you want it to represent. I mean, it's everything from the Kaaba out there in out in
yeah,
the east, all the way through to 2001: A Space Odyssey. It
yes.
pops up. It's right across the board. It is a universal symbol.
Mhm,
However, despite all my research, I haven't been able to nail down a consistent meaning for it. Each
mhm,
time it pops up, it's kind of it's not connected to anything else. In other words, it's a unique occurrence. And then very often the definition and the way it's being used is different. You know, it's different. I mean, everything from, you know, Islam to science fiction, there isn't a consistent flow. So that one is a bit of a mystery. You know, I'm not quite sure where that's going.
It is, but it still pops up like everywhere, and it's one of those conspiracy now, you know, where it's those who worship, you know, Saturn worship, getting into, you know, sacrifice and Molech and all kinds of things. You're getting into all of everything that's starting to surface right now, shall we say, you know, with, you know, trafficking, etc. It's showing up, and there's a lot of talk out there if you're on the right social media, which isn't as, shall we say, monitored, or shall we say, whose owners kind of like, no, I'll just let her go.
So, it's not quite as openly public as certain other things.
And they just don't. There is no censorship. So for the most part, you know.
Well, the key to that, obviously, the mystical key. So if you're kind of looking at it from the secret society's point of view, it's the astrology. You know, it's the planets.
Yeah.
That's much more general. That's a wider thing. That's probably common to every single secret society. You even find it in Christianity, you find it in Catholicism, you know, you find it in Islam, you find it right across the board. Everything from, you know, standing stones right the way through to the Dogon tribe in the African wilderness. Mankind, I think, really has tried to key himself or itself into the stars, into what the planets are doing, etc. I mean, there are now, you know, a lot of the, like you mentioned earlier on, the Skull and Bones, which is the club that most of the presidents of America have been in. The presidents have their own astrologers. You know, that's part of it, kind of comes with the job. Over here, the royalty have their own astrologers. They have astronomers as well, which obviously then is, quote, science. But there's nearly always somewhere an astrologer involved in that. Dark arts, whatever you want to call it, you know, alchemy, whatever. It's all centered around the planets. That's the backbone to it all. It's not just Saturn. I mean, Venus pops up a lot as well. You'll get a lot of Venus in secret societies because the 5-pointed star is the travel of Venus in the sky. It picks out a 5-pointed star. So it's the same with all the planets. They pick out patterns, you know, celestial patterns, and this is what the secret societies are using, and they always have done, especially the Romans.
Do you think I know secret societies. So right now, if we had to pick, before we, you know, get into it, because there's a lot of them that we can get into, but with respects to controlling the narrative, who do you think, for the most part, controls the narrative out of all of these societies?
I'm going to chuck in a definitely not, and a definitely I think it's them. So I'm going to do the definitely not first, because it's like there's an elephant in the room and you've got to shift the elephant before you do anything else. And the elephant in the room is Freemasonry. Okay. Everybody, doesn't matter where you are, blames the Freemasons. It's like that's the traditional thing. It's got to be Freemasons. It's got to be the higher echelons of Freemasonry that are running the show, etc., etc. And they're just an obvious target. So that particular elephant needs to be kind of, you know, gently coerced out of the room. Because to be honest with you, the thing that really showed that up was when we had the COVID pandemic and all the rest of it, the Freemasons were hit just as hard as everybody else.
Yes.
You know, it's obliterated entire lodges. It just went, you know, they're just gone. They're just not there. I think currently, the damage estimate is about 2/3 of worldwide Freemasonry collapsed. All the lodges and everything just went, you know. Well, that, to me, that doesn't sound like a super powerful world organization that's running the show. Not to me, because it should have been the other way around. You know, they should have not only survived but thrived. So as somebody that's kind of looking in, that doesn't sit right with me. That's so get that elephant out of the room. They clearly are not running the show.
Yeah.
Bouncing back the other way, though, I did mention earlier on, I mentioned the men in grey. Now, the thing with the men in grey, and this is a really vitally important principle, okay? If you can imagine that you study this subject and you study it in great detail, but every now and again, what you're looking at either runs to a dead end or there's a gap. Sooner or later, depending on all the different directions you're coming at, like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, you're going to start to see the shape of what it is that you're missing. Okay. You won't necessarily see it because it itself might be invisible, but sooner or later you're going to notice, oh, I've seen this before, you know, or that's familiar. That sounds like something that so and so said to me, so on and so on, and it goes on. It's almost like looking at the negative rather than looking at the positive. Now, I've been at this a long time. I've been looking at secret societies, well, probably since childhood, so it's half a century. That's a long time to be ploughing through them all and seeing what they're all up to and this, that, and the other. So sooner or later, I spotted a gap. I thought, that's a bit weird. Like, for example, supposing you've got something that's really bothering you. Everybody's going to understand this, okay? Something that's really bothering you, you know, it can be a law, it can be a dictate, it can be a mandate, it can be whatever it is, and it's driving you nuts because you can see it's obviously wrong. It doesn't work, it upsets the apple cart, it makes you angry, it's economically, you know, flawed, etc., etc. Are you ready for it? Here comes the men in grey. Who do you complain to?
That's your government.
Well, where'd you go? I'm serious.
One big club, as they say.
Well, yeah, right across the board. Where on earth do you go? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, boy.
Who can you phone up? Who you can complain to, whatever? Because it doesn't matter where you go. You're going to be met with the same kind of wet sponge response, you know. Go to City Hall, go to the Town Hall, go to the Council, go to Parliament, go to the MP, go to the Queen or the King or whatever, Governor, go where the hell you like. And all you'll be met with is we'll look into it, or there isn't a solution to that, you know. Oh, this, that, and the other. Now, these are the people on the lower level that are supposed to have the power to sort those kind of things out. Now, everybody that listens to this will just go, yes, that is a problem. We cannot pick up the phone and phone anybody with any authority who can do anything about it. You can't. So the gap, the men in grey, somebody somewhere is doing something that you can't stop them from doing. You can't comment on it. You can't complain about it. You can't control it. It's not, you know, democratic. That is how it is. That is it. Now, I just spotted that there. I spotted the word illusion. Now, I've had the men in grey. I mean, since I've been doing podcasts, I've mentioned these guys because it's what you don't know. It's the gap. So you don't know what they look like. You don't know what the names are. You don't know who's talking to who. You don't know where they're based. There's no way of contacting them. But they're clearly there because you can see that they're clearly there. Well, I am going to read that thing I mentioned earlier on.
Yes, please.
Because at the end of the day, I thought, you know what? I can't be the only person that's noticed this. And then as you probably know, I tend to collect memes. You know, I keep an eye on what's going on out there. And then somebody, I mean, if you're out there and it's your meme, I'm apologizing. I can't give you credit because you didn't put anything on it to credit. But this is what it says. And it's pretty much what you just said there. There is no true government, okay? What we see are merely actors on a stage, reciting lines written long before they took office. The image of governance is maintained to pacify the masses, to create the illusion of order and control in a world that is fundamentally ruled by hidden forces. Now, that is, in essence, that is the men in grey, okay? And I saw that pop up in that kind of question that came up earlier. A secret society pulls the strings behind the scenes. This group does not operate openly, nor do they subject themselves to public accountability. Instead, they hide behind veils of bureaucracy, media narratives, and endless political theatre, pretending to serve the people while actually serving only themselves. Now, there is like a part 2 to this. This is, I suppose, this is the other side. They do not lead. True leadership requires vision, courage, and service to others. What we witness instead are managers of deception, ensuring that the illusion of democracy, freedom, and choice remains intact. Their role is not to empower, but to distract, confuse, and divide. They manage the illusion like skilled magicians. They know that the key to control is not brute force, but manipulation of perception. By controlling information, education, finance, and law, they craft a reality so convincing that few ever question its authenticity. Meanwhile, the real agenda marches forward, unseen and unchecked. Now, that is basically what I've just said. Somebody else has spotted it, only this time they've written it down. So there's now a definition. We now have a definition for the men in grey. So there you go. I moved the elephant out of the way. Don't go for the obvious, don't go shooting any ducks because they're obvious. Start looking for things that are not obvious, like the example I gave, like who do you go to? How can you change this? What do you do? Who, in the end, who has the power? In a democracy, the people are supposed to have the power, but we're getting it over here now. There's a lot of groundswell of unrest going on with what the government are doing and the direction the country's going in. But I mean, it's open. It's Agenda 2030. That's what it is. You want to look for a secret society, just look for the little circular Agenda 2030 badge, the multicolored one, because they're all over the place. They're all over different countries. They don't have any boundaries.
Oh, you mean the unelected officials that are completely controlling the narrative?
Yeah. And Agenda 2030 basically is all the green stuff that isn't green. That's just money making. Basically, they're promoting and pushing certain things, which ultimately will end up with social control. It'll end up with 15-minute cities. It'll end up with people not being able to exercise any measure of freedom beyond the boundaries that they've set, which isn't going to last long if history is anything to go by. But that's another thing as well. French Revolution, what do? They start marching towards the government building with burning torches and guns and cannons and, drag them out and chop their heads off. Right. You can't do that this time because you've got no idea who they are. You don't know where they are. There is nowhere for you to focus. And that is deliberate. I mean, I'm giving you stuff here that will certainly get us banned, but there you go. That's how it is.
Thank you for that.
I love you too.
Yeah. Thanks. Like, great.
Yeah. But it's the truth. I mean, let's face it. If somebody tunes into this and they're looking for the truth, that's what it is. So all the other little secret societies that are going on, they're all there. And I can tell you about them. I can give you bits of history and what have you. And there's lots of people involved in them. But all the way up to probably 32nd, 33rd degree Freemasons, right the way up to the top, that long road, and it is a long road, is just exactly what it appears to be. It's a human development system where they release information at certain points in that development as you go through it as a process. It's only when you get to the very, very top that you're ever likely to shake hands with anybody that has any idea of what's going on, in terms of the men in grey. And chances are you'd be shaking hands with somebody, you wouldn't even realise it. They don't wear the t-shirt in grey with men in grey written on it. They don't. It's not that obvious who they are.
Well, I mean, symbolism is everywhere. Literally, it's been in films. It's been in in books. It's on your money. It's on, like, there's so much. It's the symbols are all there, and I think now that people are more aware of that, they're starting to notice it. When you're looking at, kids watching Disney movies, like, oh, that's so cute. Then you realize as you get older, going, oh, okay, wait a minute, what? What the hell is that?
What did that just do?
Exactly.
What did he say? What's that in the background? Whoa.
Is that cartoon supposed to do that?
Yeah, I didn't think you could put that in a kid's movie. It's one of those, isn't it?
Yeah, but according to the rule of thumb, apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, but some of these societies, like Illuminati, they can't necessarily hide it. They have to show you in one way or another. It has to be public. For example, like, without me getting into all these buzzwords that for sure will cause me some angst, but they have to come out and talk about pizza parties, for example. They have to come out and talk about certain things that, when you know what those hidden words actually mean and what the terms refer to, they have to in one form or another put it out there, whether it's symbolism, whether it's verbally, whether it's but it's, because most people don't read between the lines. They're not versed in this sort of thing. So it's just mocking, it's like a
Mm,
mimicry to the rest of us. So kind of like, the simple people who don't know anything. But then the simple people catch on,
yeah.
and
I
then
mean,
it's
there are some secret societies, I have to say, that as part of their mandate, and not so secret. I mean, a lot of the religions are the same. They are
sure.
sort of evangelical in their outlook. You know what I
Yes.
mean? They can't exist in a vacuum.
Yes.
Otherwise, the argument is they cease to exist because they
Hmm.
become a non-entity. So there is that, and that exists on both sides of the coin. Black and white, left-hand path, right-hand path,
Hmm.
Christian, satanic, whichever way you want to look. The mandate runs right through all of it.
Hmm.
But the two things that play into it are the idea that you can condition somebody. So a lot of what you're finding coming out
Hmm.
is basically their theology, the way they look at the world, whatever it is that they want you to just accept. That's one side of it. That's that sort of it, that side of
Hmm.
it. And the other side of it then is the plan for what's coming up in the future.
Hmm.
So if they can drop breadcrumbs, like they might make a film all about, well, I'm going to, let's be obvious, a film about AI that includes identity
Hmm.
cards, so you've got digital ID, and it looks like a great idea in the film and it works in the film, and then everyone's like, wow, what a great sci-fi idea. Boom, next minute you've got people using ID cards everywhere, right through every movie and series that Disney and Sky are making, or whatever. And then
Hmm.
all of a sudden somebody goes, let's do that in real life. And then you get the newspaper article that says, reality now starts to copy science fiction. No, hang on a minute. No, that's back to front, because what's actually happening is you've been conditioned to accept something that was planned years ago, in some
Hmm.
cases decades ago. They're
Hmm.
moving you in that direction. So there are those two aspects. I suppose there's a third aspect as well. There's the smoke and mirrors, where if something's coming up that's fairly cataclysmic, they'll come up with something that's shocking. Don't
Hmm.
look what this hand is doing. Look what this hand is doing. So you go and look over there. Wow. Epstein's died, or whatever the latest piece of news is. And meanwhile, they're very subtly bringing something in. Like fingerprint ID when school kids go for food at lunchtime, and
Hmm.
something like that. There'll be some little sinister, well, that's not important because this other big thing is really important. you know
Yeah, like which one of the Scandinavian countries was it? Was it Norway, where they were having chipping parties, where people were being microchipped and they were having parties?
Yeah, I think
They
that
were
was Norway. Yeah,
celebrating it. I
yeah,
thought,
yeah.
"Nuh-uh, not for this kid." Nope.
Well, I mean, you just connect the dots, because at the end of the day, that could come over here to the UK, because you've got quite a migrant problem over here. We've got tons
Mhm,
of people coming in from different societies now that we don't
mhm,
even know who's here. We've lost track of it. It's got way out of control. There's
mhm.
probably like 500,000 people here now that shouldn't be, but they operate differently from the residents of the UK. So
Yes,
what the government are saying is, well, we need to sort this out. We need to bring in the ID thing. We need to this, that, and the other. Well, the microchipping, if
that's
you thought there
why.
was this is it. And if you thought there was a threat to your kids, if you thought your kids were going to get
Well,
abducted,
they were chipping kids on this side of the world for a while,
well, that's what I'm
babies.
saying. Well, they
Yeah,
could start doing something similar over here. If
yeah,
every child has a digital ID and a digital fingerprint and
mhm,
a digital phone and this, that, and the other, the
yeah,
argument is, well, they'll be safe because, if they go missing, we can track them and we know where they are, etc., etc. But what they have to do is raise the threat level so that people will accept that.
mhm,
So it's a case of don't look over here, look over here, because
mhm,
1 minute we're all looking at the migrants going, oh, it's really bad. They've gone and raped a 14-year-old girl in Burnley or whatever. And then
mhm.
the next minute the government are going, well, the answer to this problem is
Yes,
this, and
yes,
they're
yeah.
creating a problem so they can bring in the solution.
Well, that's pretty much been the last, I think, decade.
I
Uh,
would say so. Yeah.
yeah, it's been happening, especially in the Commonwealth countries,
And especially
especially.
since COVID.
Especially, and it
Mm.
hasn't gotten any easier. But do you notice that whenever there's something going on in the news, that you know it's going to be major and you're waiting to hear on it, then this huge distraction piece comes out, and
Yeah.
everybody goes, oh,
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Smoke and
But it
mirrors.
seems
That's
it's with
it.
everything. It's with everything. It's just
Yeah,
like,
it is. Yeah.
because you
It
see, they
is.
have to put it out, but it sort of gets buried in comparison to something that is massive,
Yeah.
massive. And then you're kind of sitting there kind of going, wait a minute, what happened to this? The one I
Yeah.
always use is, of course, Epstein and
Mm.
the Johnny Depp trial,
Yeah. Yeah. That
because
was classic.
because that was
Yeah.
huge what was going on at that time. But there were a lot of reasons why they would want to bury that. But you see, it was out and they had to put it out there. But all of a sudden, we've got Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I don't care about this. Why is it overcoming all the media? And it just got more and more dramatic as you went along. But everybody was watching. It was freaking ridiculous.
It sort of came at the point as well where with Epstein, all the circumstantial evidence was coming out. So most of social media was bombarded with all kinds of photographs of him and Ghislaine Maxwell with all these different people. So the implication was that, if you were on the flight manifest to go to his island, and your photograph is out there, then clearly you've had some contact with him, and then all of a sudden there aren't any photos. I mean, at the moment there aren't any. They're just gone. There aren't any. And the flight manifests have all disappeared. And the list of Epstein's clients that was on Senator, whatever her name was, desk has suddenly no longer exists.
I know.
And it's like, boom, the whole lot's just vanished. It's gone.
But apparently now, something's resurfacing because Miss Maxwell has decided to start whistleblowing. So what do you think that's a distraction for?
Oh gosh, it depends where you want to go.
There's so much. I mean, there's so much.
See, some of it's not a distraction either, because they can be quite clever. They can take something that's actually happening and use that as the distraction. So over here, our media at the moment, it's just full, absolutely full of problems with the Palestinians. The Jews are bombing the Palestinians. And then on the other side of it, we've got all these people coming into the country who are, illegal immigrants. Anything else just gets sidelined. It just gets marginalized, So over here, the fact that they're bringing in cameras, they're screwing the farmers, there's tax stuff coming in, they're changing the laws, they're trying to get it so you can abort babies up to birth, they're euthanasia, they're trying to bring that in, I mean, none of this, none of that is acceptable. No. But as long as we're focused on illegal immigrants and somebody else somewhere else bombing somebody else, that's fine. Because we're not going to complain about any of those things, I'm a keen watcher of that side of it. I'm absolutely 110% not political. The reason I'm not political, politics equals getting your own way. That's all it means. That is a literal definition of what politics means. So why am I going to get involved? I wouldn't waste my time with that. I wouldn't even bother to vote. Because
you're not getting your own way. Why bother?
I mean, whatever happens. I'm not sufficiently important to control, who gets into government.
Who
We've just had a new political party over here as well. A new party's just popped up. So that's going to cause chaos.
Germany as well.
I think there's about 7 or 8 parties now over here.
Well, they have the Nazi parties come back, and people are actually voting for them.
That was, I could have predicted that one.
We have a friend in Germany. That's what he was saying. Goes, oh, this is new up in our country. I was just like, wow.
I don't think it is new, because I remember somebody came into power in the 1990s and banned the Nazi party. Yeah. Well, I thought, you wouldn't do that unless there was a party to ban. So I don't think they've ever gone away.
It could have been like one guy. I'm the party, just to see how it goes. But now apparently it's a thing out that way as well. People are just like, okay, enough is enough. So the shadow government, because we say, okay, well, let's look to our government, but what about the ones who the puppet masters?
Well, they're the men in grey. I mean, this is like the reverse part of this process is to have a look and see who's everywhere. So Elon Musk is everywhere, Bill Gates is everywhere, what's his face that runs Microsoft. He's everywhere, all these figures, we know their faces, we know who they are, we know what they're doing, etc., etc. So you look at all of that lot and you go, right, they are not part of that conclave of controlling, figures, if you like. They probably know who is. I've got no doubt they know, they could pick up the phone and complain to somebody if they wanted to. It's getting a bit cold over here. Can you just wipe Antarctica out for me? Oh, yeah, we can do that. They're sort of on that kind of level, but nobody else is. And they are, as it were, the public front. Because we know the name and we know what they look like and we know what they do, that rules them out. So in a way, you've then got this problem of, well, how do we somehow find out who to rule in? Well, some of the factors are obvious. They must all talk to each other very clearly. I think most of our particular group of men in grey are elderly, extremely wealthy, very controlling, long-lived families. Vast majority of them are probably white Anglo-Saxon, whatever. And the reason I say that is an interesting one. You don't seem to have this problem with, say, China or Japan or Russia, for that matter. They all seem to have their own thing going on. You understand what I mean? They've got their own. They don't worry about the men in grey. They don't need them. They don't need invisible control because they just get on with it. They're communists anyway, so they'll do what they want to do anyway. So when you consider at the moment, I think the Chinese outnumber us about 13 or 14 to 1. There's 15 times more of them than there is of us. If they all banded together, if the whole communist world got together, then we'd be irrelevant. We'd just pale out. So somewhere amongst the men in grey, there must be an agreement at that kind of level, higher up from one society to another. I dare say as well, there'll be something Jewish in there, there'll be something Catholic in there. There'll almost certainly be, let me try and think who else would be in that group. They're negotiating with a large number of influential, Islam. There'll be somebody Islamic in there, almost certainly. And it's the upper echelons of all of those groups that I think have banded together to form almost like a sub-society. They're not a secret society per se, but at the same time they are, and it's Hollywood, back to the movies again, Mission Impossible and all films like that. You start looking at the bad guys, James Bond, Spectre and all this, the sort of pattern that they've come up with, where there's these, societies within societies within societies. I think that's the truth. I think they've actually leaked something there to show you that there is a structure that is operating away from the structures that we've previously been aware of. They're definitely out there, but I can't put a face or a name to it. That's the whole point.
Well, they have. I believe it's something like between 10 and 13 Italian families that pretty much are believed to rule everything. So the figureheads that we know, like the Windsors or like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, apparently are small potatoes compared to the original Italian families.
Well, you've just passed the test, because you can put a face to those people, you can put a name to those people, you know where those people are, and at the end of the day, they're bankers, most of them. They're dealing in money. They're business people, so you know what they do as well. But the top echelons of those groups of people might have contacts to the men in grey. They might know what's going on. Some of the things that spill out from all this is definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, technology. I think there's a big balloon, a big bubble of technology wrapped around the men in grey, because that seems to be where the entire world is going. So if you could sit down in a bar somewhere with the director of NASA over a coffee, and he got his little black book out, you'd have a list of the men in grey, I'm pretty sure, because that's where they are. That's where that group has chosen to park itself, But Russia are benefiting from that. China are benefiting from that. Everybody is. America, the technology, Britain, everybody is benefiting. You mentioned CERN earlier on. That's sort of Switzerland, Sweden, whatever, out that way. That's where all the bankers are. So they're benefiting from it. So I think it's been a shift You know, if you'd have gone back 100 years, it'd have all been about money. If you'd have gone back
Yeah.
200 years, it would have all been about spirituality. Now, 21st century, it's all about technology. So I think that's where they're placing their bets. You know, I think that's where it's going.
So, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're getting into, you know, the different banking bloodlines. You know, you're getting into, you're going pretty high up the food chain there as well. Aside from just the Rothschilds, but let's talk about the Jesuits.
Yeah. Well, all I was going to say as well with the technology side of it, bankrolling,
yes,
is what you pay to do something else. So that money's going somewhere to bankroll something. And I'd venture to say it's things like genetic engineering, etc. And some of it, because of the countries involved, some of it would be a big no-no.
Yeah.
You know, they're up to something. They're mucking about with things. They're playing with things perhaps that they shouldn't be playing with. So 100 years from now, if somebody's got the technology to watch this, I'm going to predict that 100 years from now, there's going to be mass genetic stuff going on, you know, GMO and all this kind of stuff. Stuff will have been altered, things will have been changed. You know, you're going to see a guy walking down the road with all kinds of superhero capabilities, you know, like X-Men and all this kind of stuff. You're going to, those kind of people will exist because they'll have come out with it. You know, they'll have gone public with it. But the UFOs are an interesting example because you got a crash at Roswell in 1947, and here we are now in 2025. So what happened in the gap in between? You just imagine in all those years where they could have gone with any of the technology that was around at the end of the Second World War. That's mind-boggling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Excuse me. We're getting hints. You know, there's hints that they might be creating black holes and mucking about with time travel and, you know, speed of light stuff and all that kind of thing. And we're even getting hints that they've got like multiple different forms of, you know, electric vehicles now, different batteries, different technology, all this sort of thing. There's no need now to be running the way that Tesla's running at the moment. But the same thing's true of things like treating cancer, and they can zap it with light, they can zap it with sound, you know, all that sort of bucket full of stuff that we kind of know about. Well, somebody's paying for it all. Somebody's making it happen. Someone's controlling the science, you know, somebody's behind it. That's where I think the men in grey sit. Is it the Catholic Church? well,
I think it's partially that and other, yeah.
Well, Italian bankers. You mentioned Italian bankers and Italian banks. I mean, the Catholic Church, technically by definition, has been around for, you know, 2,000 years or whatever. How long you think
and changed like everything.
Well, yeah, they just plod along.
We know it. Yeah.
Well, that's why I said if you'd have gone back 200 or 300 years, the control would have had to sit in the realms of religion. You know, what you could and couldn't do and what you could get away with and what was acceptable. And there was a concept. You go back 100 years and it's most of that control is probably through money, through military, through society, etc., etc. But now it's technology. That's the big one. I think that's where Elon Musk has been really clever.
Well, techno. What did they call it? What did his grandfather? Yes, and that was his. What was it? His grandfather who was involved in that as well.
Oh,
and this is the dream of the
You're not
whole...
thinking of Operation Paperclip, are you? After the Second World War, all the scientists that they sent to America and Russia and Britain and.
Well, apparently his father was in the Canadian branch of this, and you can find a lot of this. And the dream was to have a government that would not involve politicians, only scientists and engineers. And basically they would create an entire, I guess, you know, country would be based on these people.
Almost like the Matrix. Oh, did I say that? Almost like the Matrix.
That's a whole other show that I've done.
But it is. But technology, do you remember what I said about Hollywood showing you the way?
Yes.
It's exactly what you've just said. That is what the men in grey are about. That's what they're up to. How they're doing it in practice, though, is a little bit different. The way it's working out now is not quite as straightforward.
No, but the thing is this has been in the works since, I mean,
3 generations.
4
generations.
Well, I mean, as far as his family goes, with his grandfather, I believe it was, this goes back into like the 50s where
Well, yeah,
they
well,
were
I
seriously trying to
yeah.
implement this. It was an
Well, I said 40s.
organization.
1940s is where the seeds of that idea,
There we go.
came into being.
Yeah, there you go.
So
So
the
it's I think what people have to look at as well is what people deem as the forbidden knowledge, things we're not
yeah, yeah,
allowed to know. It's because knowledge, true knowledge, will take down the illusion.
yes, it does. It
It
does.
does, right?
But also,
And
tr-
if it's forbidden, it's because it's because it is those in power, gatekeepers, if you will, who keep that. They decide, and why? Because you can't control the masses.
well,
Otherwise,
it depends if you think whether they're bad guys or good guys. If you think they're bad guys, yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. It's all about control. If you actually think that they're the good guys, the
Mhm,
truth, and I've learnt it from experience, the truth is
mhm,
absolutely brutal.
mhm,
It can destroy the person that finds it. It says you will know the truth and the truth will set you free.
mhm,
Yes, it will set you free, but only in the sense that it's like going through a surgical operation or a rebirth or being skinned alive kind of thing. It's not a pleasant experience. It's
no,
not all yippee butterflies and zen
mhm,
and all that stuff. It's not 1960s hippie stuff. It is absolutely brutal. So
mm,
you've got to
yeah,
sort of look at these guys and think, are they trying to do the Disney thing and keep us all smiling and happy because that way we all get a better life and then everybody dies anyway? Or are they doing it the other way and they're protecting us from hell? Which way is it? Where they're going now. I mean, when religion was the top of the tree, when that was the thing that was controlling everything, I think protection would have been on the agenda. They were trying to build something that was morally stable and ran according to a set of rules that most people could understand. You can't do that with technology. You just can't do it because technology is brutal. That's the thing with AI. AI is just brutal. It'll take
mhm,
what it needs and it'll do what it needs to do with it, and that's that. It's a flipping robot. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And that's kind of where the future's heading. That's where it's
mhm,
edging. It's edging into the robotics and stuff. And they've come up with robots now that lie to protect themselves. They've got robots that will self-replicate. There's
yeah,
all kinds of fringe stuff that's going on that might not be. And of course, going back to 1945,
mhm,
everybody assumes, without a doubt, that the Germans, the Nazis, the bad guys lost the war.
mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
they might have lost the war, but they didn't lose the battle. They're still there. So bear that in mind as well when you
mhm.
start to, where's the money coming from? What's the background of the person I'm dealing with? Where's the technology coming from? Does this match up with anything that Hitler tried to do in the Second World War? By the time you've finished, if you go down that rabbit hole, it's brutal. It is absolutely brutal.
There, there's so much truth hidden. Like I always say, all the world's a stage, and you
Yep.
just have to learn to know what you're looking for. When I had mentioned the Jesuits, it's because what came to mind was governance with respects to how another sect comes in and essentially becomes this big money machine with its members, Jesuit members. The
Yeah.
one that comes to mind is Titanic, of course.
Oh, the owners of Titanic. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Well, don't forget as well, just to qualify this for anybody that's listening, the Jesuits now are known as the Holy Office.
Yes.
That's the modern day label for them. So if you ever see in the Catholic world those terms, Holy Office, brackets, it's Jesuits.
Well,
Okay, so
like the white, is it the black Pope?
well,
Is allegedly supposed to be Jesuit. Oh.
I mean, there was
You're the
one point where
religious guy. You're the one that holds the certification.
you got the old Pope drops dead, then we end up with two popes, and then one Pope drops dead, and we end up with another Pope, and then the other Pope drops dead, and it's like, this is not really what it says on the label,
I know.
this is really bizarre,
Because don't you have white, gray, and black?
Well, there is,
Oh,
yeah. In religious orders, there is, because obviously
yeah.
you've got white are the Templars, the grey are the Cistercians, I think, and the black are the Black Friars. So, or Hospitallers. It depends how you look at it. So the colours are relevant. Of course, the
Yes.
colours are relevant.
But
Yeah.
it was interesting again with Titanic because the fact that the ship's captain was allegedly a Jesuit and that Jesuits, I guess, I don't know, did they own the ship? Did they own the company? Did they? It was
Well,
something because it was meant to do exactly what it did for allegedly insurance purposes.
wow, that's you've got to really study it to get to the bottom of this, because
Yeah.
there's absolutely no doubt that the White Star Line, fudged everything from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And there's absolutely no doubt that the Titanic should not have sailed out of Liverpool when it did. And the main reason it shouldn't have gone is that they had a fire in the coal in the hold that was melting the side of the ship. So, I mean, it shouldn't have gone anyway. That's before you start looking at the fact that the bulkheads that were supposed to stop it from sinking fell short of reaching the deck where they were supposed to be. So looking at all of that and the fact that it was quite badly mismanaged and the thundering, 100 million miles an hour across the ocean and whack, they go into a block of ice. Oh, didn't see that coming. It's one of those kind of things. The whole thing is a mess.
Well, they believe that the ship that went out was actually the damaged ship that if they sunk it, they'd get insurance money for.
Well, some people think they switched the two out and it was the Lusitania.
Exactly.
So, there's all these different conspiracy theories. I don't think it's the Lusitania because I've studied both ships and I don't think it is. But I do think that there was not so much an intentional insurance scam, but there were a lot of corners cut. And that it should never have happened. That having been said, having gone through all of that, because bear in mind, I'm only 16 miles away from Liverpool, so we've got all the information here. I've held a first-class ticket from Titanic in the museum, so I've done a lot of research on Titanic. There's not a lot of Catholic involvement, behind the scenes. There isn't, and it's very hard to pick out an individual. There's like nearly 1,500 people on the ship. You can't pick out an individual and just home in on that one and say, well, because he's Catholic, it's a Catholic conspiracy. Most of the time, actually, the Catholics are kind of all right. It's the thing with the whole religious thing is that most of, I'm going to treat them all as secret societies, right? Okay, because they all are. Whatever goes as a quote denomination or goes as a religion of the book, so that covers Judaism, it covers Islam, they all have sub-societies. Even Islam, they've got Sufis, they've got Sikari, they've got all kinds of different hidden societies. All of them as a rule are okay because they all function, they all do what it says on the tin, and that's what they are. So socially and historically, they're not really a problem. Yes, they are a problem when you've got, Templars being burnt at the stake and then witches burnt at the stake, and then so on and so on. These kind of persecutions are a problem. That's when it goes wrong. But I have to say, for the majority of time, they're kind of okay, because you're talking about human beings all over the entire planet. Everybody does it, everyone from flipping Ethiopia to Beijing to Australia. They've all got their own way of dealing with a club. But I would say that doesn't qualify any of them, as a sinister, hidden.
No, where I was going with it.
Even the Jesuits are borderline.
Well, they were just known to have sort of branched off more into political side of things, is where I was going with it. And
I don't think they've ever not been political, because you've got to remember the entire church, really, as we've got it now, starts with Constantine the Great. So you're talking about, was it 314 AD with the Edict of Milan? So he then codifies what it is. So what he's doing is he's sitting there going, I am the man of power. I'm controlling everything. Here's the club rules, guys. This is what you're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then all the other little societies that were around at the time are all like, oh, what do we do? What do we do? Die out. They all get wiped out. And we lose loads of them. Exactly the same thing happens now, the same process. But that's not religion in a way, that's politics. They are always overlapping. You couldn't get more political than the Roman emperor, for goodness sake. He's controlling the whole empire. Well, the same thing's true over here. I mean, technically speaking, there are certain religious rules, for example, on the king in
Mhm.
Britain. So there are certain things that Charlie has done that
Mhm.
should have technically disqualified him from office, because he's not following Church of England rules, and he's the head of the Church of England. But because that's no longer the primary mandate, it hasn't made any difference.
Mhm.
He's in bed with the right political leaders, the right technological leaders,
Mhm.
everything from flipping G7 to Agenda 2030. He's in bed with all of them. So that's the only reason he's still there. If the church was as powerful as it
Mhm.
used to be, he wouldn't have even made it to the coronation. It would have skipped him and gone straight to Wills and Kate.
That's what a lot of people thought would happen. But I guess if you are very much in bed, so to speak, with
Yeah.
the non-elected officials.
Well, we're in a process of the two kind of floating past like that, because the elected officials now, so anybody that's in Parliament, the MPs and all the rest of it,
Mhm.
they're all in the back pocket of bigger societies.
Mhm.
They're all,
Yeah.
World Health Organization or World Economic Forum or whatever you want to have,
Mhm. Mhm.
Bill Gates, whoever, they're all in their pocket. So they are technically more powerful now than the king. And the reason for that is that they're in bed with people who are even more important than the
Mhm.
king is.
Mhm.
So it's kind of gone like that now. So
Mhm.
the only reason the king is still there is because Parliament allows him to be. It's gone the opposite way. Poor old Oliver Cromwell would be turning in his grave at this point. So it's all gone, terribly, awfully wrong.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot in the media. Let's talk about the Bilderberg Group.
Ooh,
These, yeah, elected or non-elected officials, so to speak, that just get together very quietly, what is it, once a year, and
yep.
decide the fate of the world and how things are going to go.
Well, again, they're borderline because we know they exist. Okay,
Yeah,
so for a start, they're not completely secret.
yeah,
That's the thing that I'd always find hilariously funny, actually. Secret societies, and none of them are a secret. So
yeah,
how can they be secret societies? You can see where I'm going with that, can't you?
yeah,
We only know about them because they've allowed us to know about them. So it's an oxymoron at the end.
yeah,
But the Bilderberg are an interesting one because there are characters that are involved with that particular group that we don't know anything about. So they
mhm,
are borderline. It's
mhm,
like they're a portal between the known and the unknown. As
yeah,
for them deciding the fate of the world, that's kind of what I was hinting at when I said 32nd, 33rd degree Freemasons, because a lot of them are in that bracket. They're
mhm,
in the and Freemasonry is worldwide. That's another thing as well. Bilderberg is a good example of a group that has become a global village, and
mhm,
that is a relatively new phenomena. You can
mhm,
look at certain groups of things like, well, music business is a good example. It's everywhere, it's all over the world, but there are so few people involved in that everybody everywhere knows everybody else. Doesn't matter where you come from. Oh, it's you from so and so, and I know you from such and such a thing. And Bilderberg's like that. It's just international, and it's
mhm,
a group of certain people whose face fits.
mhm,
And they've become a global village. Now, the men in grey are most definitely a global village. They're totally 110%. We talk about a new world order and a one world government. Well, that's who the men in grey are. They're
mhm,
just labels, but I think they do exist. I'm becoming more and more convinced that there is a one world government that's pulling the strings. I am convinced,
mhm,
but I'm not
mhm,
sure it's Bilderberg. Like I say, I think that's a public face. There are people there that we do know about, we can look
mhm.
into, but there are people there who we probably don't know.
Well,
Private
yeah,
seminars, private meetings.
well, like Bohemian Grove.
Well, that's a subgroup, isn't it? Yeah, that's like Skull and Bones, Bohemian Grove,
Yeah, mhm,
upper
yeah.
degrees of
But,
masonry,
I mean,
so on and
that's a
so on.
once a year thing as well,
Yes,
Bohemian
it
Grove.
is. Yeah, Bohemian Grove's a funny one. It really is. It's I've looked into it and I
We could
can't.
go with funny.
Well, it's funny because I can't decide if it's genuinely what it appears to be or if it's cosplay. Because a lot of people in a lot of, groups get bored with what they're doing. You know, I mean, oh, if I had all the power and all the money and I could do everything in the entire world, what would I do? I'd go and do something stupid, you know. So I can't really make my mind up whether it's,
Yeah.
you know, a bunch of people who do it because they can, but it's been going on a long time, and there's a lot of important people that have been involved with Bohemian Grove, and a few of the photographs that have leaked out are convincingly creepy.
Yeah, like the whole
You know,
Molech type
yeah, well, yeah, the Molech thing is what I was
thing,
thinking of. Yeah,
because
that
that's
great big thing that they've got in the woods, you know, with
child
fire going up. And
sacrifice. I mean, that goes back to the time, of
now you're really trying to get us banned.
well, no, but I mean, I know I have to be very careful. It goes back to the time
It does.
of the Essenes and the Cathars.
Well,
You know,
it's in a sense, it's
it's
worse than that. I'll share a little story with you. It's kind of relevant, but it kind of isn't.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
something that won't get us banned.
yeah,
I was in North Africa. I was in Tunisia, and I went to visit a site called Carthage.
yeah.
And Carthage, the Carthaginians were a group of people that the Romans had a hell of a problem with. They couldn't defeat them. They couldn't beat them. They were a mighty sort of North African empire.
Mm-hmm.
But the big thing with them was child sacrifice. And that's where the origins of the whole Molech, you know, Bohemian Grove thing. It goes back to Carthage. Tanit is the god's Tanit. Can't decide if it's male or female. It's basically a triangle with a circle with a couple of stick arms and legs. But that's the god or goddess is Tanit.
Mm-hmm.
And they had this furnace. Okay, they created a building that was a furnace. And what people could do was go up there with the child they wanted to sacrifice and drop it into the furnace.
Mm-hmm.
I've stood in that furnace. It's like an aircraft hangar. It's huge. And before they excavated it, it was completely filled with ashes. Mm-hmm. And it's only as you're leaving that you realise that there's a couple of tunnels that go off to other furnaces. So that particular religion and that particular sort of branch, if you like, as you rightly said, thousands of years ago in the BC period, they were burning an awful lot of kids. You know, there's a lot of destruction. Their view of cashing in favours from the gods, you know, and what have you, was very, very different from ours. Whether or not that still goes on to this day depends on how you view human behaviour. Because one of the things they've introduced is, or should I not introduce, but they've certainly broadened it out in a way that was unimaginable, you know, in my mum and dad's day, is the whole issue of abortion. So you've got to look at motive. Okay, you've then got to look at motive. Why is somebody disposing of that human being? You know, yes, there are good reasons sometimes to get rid of them, but it's nothing new. It's been going on for thousands, tens of thousands of years. That's you know, population control or whatever. But the question is why? What are you, and I'm going to use the words, sacrificing that child for? That's your key. So this is where it gets brutal. This is where the truth and where you're looking at it from a different point of view is dangerously brutal. Because if, you know, for example, you decide you want to get rid of this baby because it's inconvenient and you want to go on holiday and you want to look good in a bikini, you are sacrificing a child to an illusion of beauty. You're doing it for something, for some form of gain. Now, that is because I've read a lot of the Tanit spells. I've read a lot of the material that surrounded the cult of Tanit and Molech and others like them. That is the basic principle. You know, that's what the Romans did. You know, if you had something you wanted or a request or you had something to gain, even if it meant that, you know, your 10 kids got reduced to 9.
Yes, sometimes it was the most precious thing that you had to give.
Or it was the most precious thing you could give.
Yeah.
Sometimes you wanted, it was survival. Sometimes it was, like you say, value. And everyone's like, well, you know, we don't do that today. You know, there's all this rubbish about celebrities going off and
just look in the Bible, Abraham.
Yeah. I mean, that's only biblical stuff's only 2,000 years ago. Most of it's 3,000 at the most. So it's there. It's everywhere. You know. But that's the key to it is your motive. So I'm going to get really radical. What's the difference between, you know, a satanic high priest deciding he's going to bump a child off on the altar, or some woman walking through the streets of LA who's had 10 abortions? I don't see any difference. You know, because it's done for convenience. And that's where the truth element becomes brutal. The reasons behind why they're making that sort of thing easier is purely population control. If you know what's going on, what the men in grey are perpetuating, what's going on behind the scenes, if you can watch the signs, because you can't obviously watch them, but you can see what they're up to, all this idea of slackening things off and loosening things off, so like gay people don't reproduce. Nothing against gay people, I think they're fab, but they don't reproduce. That's solving a problem. Abortions, that reduces the population. That's solving a problem. Let's go and have a war somewhere and kill 2 or 3 million people. That's solving the exact same
depopulation.
Yeah. Let's let a virus loose and see how many people we can kill. That's solving the same problem. So sometimes you've just got to sit back, and just go, why? What does this achieve? Where is it going? Sad but true. As I said some time ago, the truth is brutal.
The truth is brutal. And, when we look at this Agenda 2030, we also, come to terms with the fact that it's not the first reset. So what happens every reset? And why do the resets keep happening? Why do they keep, wiping out history, so to speak, or, way of life like it never existed? It comes into the whole Mandela effect, when people... Right? No, I remember the bears being written this way, or I remember just little things, and all of a sudden it's just we're conditioned differently.
Yes, in a way, when you say reset, I'm picking up reset because the 2030 is an important thing. It's quite significant. And again, if I'm going deep with this, if you look at what's going on a global scale, lots of people are running around doing lots of things that they think are going to save the world. Let's drop the CO2, stop global warming, rising sea levels. We mentioned cloud seeding, crop spraying and all this kind of thing, GMO, you name it, whatever they're doing. And they're like, yeah, we're doing all this because, we want to save the world. Well, actually, no, vast majority of it is population control. That's what it's about. However, what they're not banking on is the fact, and this is where we're back to exactly where we started now, because we're talking astrology and astronomy, the fact that the planet will roll on regardless. It's doing whatever it is meant to do. That's what this ball we're sat on is doing, but so is the rest of the universe. So I'm personally of the opinion that we can run around the planet, gassing people, aborting people, having wars, killing people, being worried about the rainforest, this, that, and the other. We're like fleas on a dog's back. We're not going to change what the planet's doing. And then all of a sudden we're going to get a reset, because you're going to get something like Tunguska, where you get, some comet comes whizzing in and explodes, and that's the end of it. We know it happened. We know it happened with the dinosaurs. And if I'm being completely truthful, we're mucking about with the timescales. We don't know when that happened. That's the truth. We haven't got a clue. Yeah, we've got all this fancy technology that says, 65 million years ago or whatever. I don't even know what 65 million years is. I can't have that as a concept. So all it means to me and to thousands, tens of thousands of other people is it's not going to happen anytime soon. That's what that means. But that is true, because mathematics tells you with chaos formula, anything can happen at any time. There might be one flying towards us now. We might not be sat here this time next year. That's the reality of it. And I don't think that the men in grey or Agenda 2030 or any of the new ages or anyone that thinks, all of a sudden aliens are going to come down and rebuild the planet, or that is not how it's going to be. It's nature at its most brutal. I think something is, volcanoes are going to go off or going to get smacked by meteorites.
Oh, they have been.
Well, yeah.
Italy's got like flooding and like golf ball size hail right now. Like, Italy. So, the interesting thing is Canadian scientists have essentially, come forward publicly and said there's no climate change here. Like, we don't need to do this. Like, we pay climate tax, yet we only have a total of maybe 8 coal mines,
Well, you could stop it all dead. You could absolutely, completely and utterly stop it. So we're not producing any CO2 at all. And scientifically, the truth is that all plant life on Earth would then die because the plants need CO2 in order to exist.
Yes.
So the facts do not support the narrative, which is where everyone goes, oh, conspiracy theory.
The narrative.
Wait a minute. It's not.
Let me adjust my tinfoil hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is a flipping fact, you know what I mean? This is what's really happening.
Yeah.
And all the evidence fits the facts, then, the rest of it is just narrative. It's spin. Did we get a question popping up there? I noticed something coming up.
Oh, no, people are just I'm just putting up comments, essentially. Hey, Sparky says Mount Rainier in Washington going off. Yeah. And,
I mean, if I was going to give you a hot tip, I would say keep an eye on what the Earth's doing. Because at the moment there is it's like a huge ring of fire. Stuff is going off everywhere. Not just a hot Vindaloo curry on a Friday night. It's a bit more of a ring of fire than that. This is the planet Earth having a ring of fire, and that will definitely move the goalposts. I mean, it's ridiculous. Here we are going, hey, we're a little bit worried about global warming. One volcano, that's all it takes, goes.
Well, the one in Russia was massive.
Well, we're blacked out for 3 years. Forget global warming and all that nonsense and putting CO2 into the atmosphere. One volcano only has to go, and that's it. Lights out. You don't need Bill Gates to be sending stuff up to, dim the sun, because it'll be switched off completely and we'll have to survive. Very much, we'll be plunged into a mini ice age, very much as we were in the past. That is a fact. We do know that happens because it happened in 540 AD. Krakatoa went off and we got the yellow plague, and it, pretty much wiped out most of Europe because all the fallout came this way, which is why the Anglo-Saxons were able to take over Britain, because everyone was dead. So it's kind of, these are the facts. Sea level isn't rising. That's absolute nonsense. I mean, Antarctica's grown by about a third this year. So if anything, it's falling because it's all going back to ice. It's just moving from one pole to another,
Yeah, he says Rainier experiences an average of 9 earthquakes a month. Recently, it has experienced a large earthquake swarm, the largest in at least 36 years, with over 500 detected. There's, New Jersey had one the other day. There's a patent for that. That's all I'm going to say. I've seen it. So
I wouldn't want to be visiting Yellowstone Park anytime soon. You know what I mean?
I know. See, that's something else with Yellowstone, because people will say, no, it's just migration. I don't know, herd of buffalo going through like the metropolis, like through the town, through, and a friend of mine, on the Navajo Nation, they had a bear. Because we don't get those here. Because it came in from that direction. Because we don't.
Well, they're just, the animals are not stupid because they work on electromagnetic signals. So when they get a feeling, they actually know how to read that feeling and they react accordingly, because they're still wired into planet Earth. Most of us are not. But they're still wired in. So if they're moving out, that's, like I say, I wouldn't be visiting Yellowstone Park anytime soon, just in case.
I know.
It only takes one of these volcanoes to kind of go, just has to cough, and the rest of us, are just screwed.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think if there's definitely a narrative being pushed, and you have, well, we're probably 4.5 years away now from 2030. So you got a timeline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose, again, people are probably thinking, do the powers that be, whether we know about them or we don't know about them, do they know something that we don't? So the simple question is, well, if they did know something that we don't, you're back to, is it good or is it bad? Would it be worth them telling us? Would they want to tell us? Will they tell us? Chances are they won't, because they wouldn't want mass panic. We've got, somebody mentioned there's an asteroid or a meteorite or something.
Oh, that was Wayne. Yeah, he said
that I'm aware of that coming in. It's coming in from far out in the solar system, and some people are saying, well, it's a UFO in disguise. We're about to be invaded, blah blah, etc. If that does decide to head straight for us, I don't think we'll know. I don't think anyone's going to tell us.
Oh, that's what he's saying. You'll be lucky if you know it when it's right on top of you. Well, but there are people who believe that there's a major cataclysmic event coming for us, and that it could be anywhere in the next. It could be a year. It could be 3, but it's coming. So maybe you're right on the money with that.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you study prophecy, if you study like Nostradamus and Revelation and Daniel and all these things, there does seem to be a sort of a groundswell, if you like, of indications. And it talks about social as well, and political, and wars, and viruses and famines, and there's a lot of detail in that. And I think at different points in the past, I think we've had all of those things. They've all happened at some time. But at the moment, they're all happening at once. That's the kicker. Anyone that studies any kind of prophecy, if you try and join the dots, it's like, oh, we're getting this. Oh, we're getting this as well. Oh, look, this is happening as well. And we've got another one there and another one there. And they're all described as signs, and they're heading towards something. And the something, as a rule in prophecy, is generally not particularly pleasant. Usually it ends with a bang, and a flash, and something happens. So, I suppose if I was to sit here and pick a date, from now till 2030, sooner or later I'd hit the right date. That's kind of what you're looking at. It's inevitable. Something will happen. But whether it's sooner or later, I'd like it to be later, because I don't really want to be around when it does.
No, exactly. But you know what? If you think about it, you're looking at all these volcanoes going off, and to me, I look at, Zuckerberg, who just built this, after the fires, by the way, okay, in Hawaii. Then all of a sudden, there's this huge, estate with a massive underground bunker. And this is what's happening. Certain people are buying up properties. Now, if you're all going underground and there's volcanoes going on and earthquakes going on, what I read probably about 3 months ago is that there are elite people who are paying certain people in Dubai, okay, to build in the mountains.
Well, it depends how you look at that.
Okay.
A bunker is not going to help you if you're dealing with a volcano.
Nope.
And a bunker is not going to help you if you're dealing with a tidal wave, because you're basically sat in a thing that's going to fill up with water.
Or an earthquake.
It's not going to help you. It probably wouldn't be much good in a meteorite strike, but then that depends on the size of the meteor and where it impacts, because then you would get earthquakes and tidal waves and this, that, and the other. But
because remember, these go way down.
Yeah, so and generally speaking, being higher up would probably be better if it was a cosmic impact.
Yes.
But generally speaking, bunkers and stuff like that, in history, they've always been used for civil unrest. And underground cities, underground tunnels, people where entire nations have gone underground and live in tunnels. It's usually for civil unrest. It's to protect them against other human beings.
Exactly. We look at all these underground cities, essentially, that have been found throughout Europe.
Yeah, that's what I'm
that
thinking
still
along those lines.
Even with the wars above everything.
Yeah.
So yes, from other people.
Yeah.
But if you are decimating the planet.
Well, it's a moot point whether we as a species could actually decimate the planet. They talk about the tipping point. I mean, I remember at school them saying, "Oh, the clock of time, and it's 2 minutes to midnight." And this, that, and the other. Hang on a minute, that was in the 1970s. Now we're in the 80s. We've gone through the 90s. We've gone through the 2000s. We've gone through the 2010s. We're in the 2020s, and they're still saying, "Oh, it's probably 30 seconds off midnight now." And I'm like, "Hang on a minute, you're dragging this out a bit. This is getting a bit silly now."
Yeah.
There isn't a midnight, and there isn't a clock ticking, because nature, the universe, and everything else teaches you that anything, anywhere, can happen at any time. So you can't do it like that. It's just not practical. You're basically going to go, "Oh, look, there's a meteorite up in the sky. Bang." That's probably the only warning you're going to get. That'll be it. I mean, frankly, if there's an atomic war or an asteroid collision or anything like that, I'm going to run under it. I'm not going to want to survive that. Why not? Let's just call it quits and go at that point, because there is such a thing, I think, as destiny, you know, and if it's your destiny for the whole thing, you know, to be cleaned off and start again, then that's what's going to happen. I'm not going to be able to stop that. And it's things like that that make the whole, you know, let's be environmentally green and this, that, and the other. And no, it's not. That's politics. That's people equals getting their own way. And that's what they're doing. They're making shed loads of money. Absolutely. It's all about the green stuff. Oh, let's all invest in wind farms. Yeah, we'll all put our money into wind farms. Hang on a minute.
Which are not apparently very good to do.
No, well, we've got them over here.
Bad for the environment.
Yeah, we've got them absolutely everywhere. They're a flipping eyesore.
Yes, and electric batteries, bad for the environment.
Yeah, and
but you know what it does do? If you're driving over top of a large battery, that's going to sterilize you, probably give you cancer.
Yeah. Well, it's also doing that to nature. It's killing birds. The lubricant they use is based on diesel. You can't, you know, you can't reuse any of the parts in one of these things. When they're gone, they're gone. They're dangerous. They're not recyclable. And then the spinning blades are dropping carbon fibers everywhere, so they're polluting the ground below them. And when they build them, the bases of them are enormous. They're just wiping out huge areas of over here what are essentially green spaces, listed green belt. So it's just a massive no. The ones out in the sea are ridiculous. They're just ludicrous. They're not even, you can't even maintain them. When they go wrong, they've got a lifespan of about 20 or 30 years. They have to switch them all off when it's too windy. Because they heat up and burst into flames. So
it's ridiculous. I mean, not good for us. Anything that alters our frequency, not good for us. But you look at Operation Popeye, weaponized weather, proof that man has tried to play God with the sky. And we see that big time. Like I said, there's patents everywhere. And these patents are not new. These patents, you see the upgraded ones, you know, every time they upgrade a patent that's new. But this goes back a really freaking long time ago. They've been doing this or attempting to do this for a really long time.
Well, again, it's that technology that kind of came out of the Second World War. It's the same, you know, we're living, there's absolutely no doubt that we're living in a post-war society. And the whole structure is influenced in ways we don't even imagine by you know, Nazi Germany and Nazi scientists and the developments they made, experimentation. If they didn't do that, we'd have no rockets, we'd have no medical science, we'd have no population control, all these things that are going on now. There'd be no space race. You know, just everything that we see now as a 21st century, you know, Western inhabitant can be, you know, taken all the way back to what the Germans were doing, you know, and we're stuck with it. You know, that's where we're at now. That's what we live in.
Well,
that's the curse of being a historian.
It's know too much and well, especially, you know, being a historian, archaeologist, looking at things, being able to you know, research it in a different way. But you know, as we're heading in towards the last few minutes of the show, one world order. Some people, you know, especially people futurists who are looking, you know, they believe in a galactic federation or the potential of one, are, you know, they think, well, you know, if there is such a thing, they're not going to want to deal with, you know, a bunch of children who can't get along in the sandbox. You know, it's better to have one authority, which of course, you know, we have, you know, NATO trying to be the authority.
It's not worldwide though, NATO.
It's not
only the countries that are in it.
Which, and some have dropped out for sure, you know. But if we're looking at that, you know, is it better to have a one world order? I don't like order. One world government to basically to deal maybe with representatives from different countries and with one person at the helm. Or is it just gotten so much of a bad rap because of everything they want to do with it pertaining to 2030 that it needs to be completely scrubbed and re-examined?
If it was left to me, I'd scrub it. But the reason I'd scrub it would be we're back to the Tower of Babel again, where all the different nations, different races, different ways of doing things, you know, different languages, different cultures, scattered for a reason. There was a reason why they all scattered, and the reason, if you actually read between the lines, is human survival. The only reason we've actually survived as a human race is because we are so diverse.
Yes.
So if you reverse that, if you go backwards and try and reunite again in a one world government,
yes,
and everybody everywhere suddenly has to all believe the same thing, do the same thing, act the same way, you know, all the different races start intermarrying, everything dilutes and all the rest of it. That's not evolution. You're not moving forward. You're actually devolving. You're going backwards, and you'll finish up with one entity that is really easy to destroy. That is, it's going to threaten humanity and threaten mankind, humankind. It will become dangerous to do that at some point in the future. So you might end up then, you know, if I was writing a sci-fi novel about that, you might end up where there's the only ones that have survived are the ones that have rebelled and gone outside of that framework, because they understood that their individuality was the only reason that there were still humans on planet Earth. You know, and that is the truth. That again, it's brutal, but it's true. So all these guys who are trying, you know, unite, it almost, I'm not saying it's true, but it almost makes the Russians and the Chinese and, you know, the Africans and the, you know, people in Australia and, you know, all the different, you know, the Americans, even us, everybody, everyone that doesn't get on with each other, it almost makes them into the heroes. Because actually that's the right thing to do. We don't want everybody getting on with everybody else, because it just won't work. That is impossible. You know, it's dysfunctional.
Yeah, 100%. Well, in closing, if we're still here,
yeah, if this doesn't suddenly go just disappear into the ether,
that too.
Yeah,
you know, but it's been an interesting conversation, and one that could continue to go in many different directions, and maybe it's something we can explore. But definitely, guys, you know the drill where you're going to find the immediate replay. It's not in the regular spot, because apparently the regular spot even gets a bit ornery if you try to redirect people elsewhere. So we're going to leave that right there. Y'all know where to go. And yes, thank you. Thank you very much. We thought so too. So, but everybody in chat, you make it that much more interesting, and we appreciate you all so very much. Mark, of course, thank you for this.
Thank you for having me again.
Oh, thank you for the deep dive.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to say, if people come up with questions and stuff that we haven't covered, then I don't mind doing a part 2. That's worth doing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well,
and I must say, don't forget to go and find me. Find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Amazon. Go on, there's the advert.
Okay, what do you have coming up? What do you
well, book-wise, obviously, I've got 9 books out in print, so they're all on Amazon. So that's easy enough to get me on Amazon. Just type my name in. There'll be a list of books available that come up. Click, order, you know, off you go. And that's pretty much the only way I sell product nowadays. If you need to find me on Facebook, it's the guy with the big beard. There are a few other Mark Ollys, but you know, fairly distinctive. You'll get the right one. And then you can talk to me on Messenger as well. So that's handy. You can come and find me on there. You'll find out what I'm doing.
Yeah, put your questions off to Mark. You'll find them.
Yeah, you can get me directly. I mean, you say what I'm up to. I mean, the last weekend I was on a Viking reenactment weekend in a mead hall down south. So that was particularly interesting. There's photos of that. I did a gig with me rock band, you know, again on last month in July, the big summer gig. So there's stuff happening all the time, and it pops up on Facebook. So you might want to come and friend me. But if your name's Fifi Trixabel and, you know, there's a photo of a butterfly and, you know, there are no posts on your thread and you've only got 2 friends, you know, I'm not likely to accept you. So try and be realistic, you know, be realistic. And the other side of it is YouTube. All my back catalogue of stuff, all the programs that I did, Lost Treasures, a lot of the specials I did for Sky, all that sort of stuff, and a few extras, they're all on YouTube, so you can go and watch them now. You can binge watch about 11 hours of me now if you really want to. So that might be.
And I did.
Hey, have you done all 22 episodes?
Yes, I did. I did.
Yeah.
I went through them all. They're great. So
Oh, you're a
highly
star.
recommended, guys. Highly recommended.
You
So
get the gold star for that. There aren't many people that have stuck it out to the
oh
bitter
no,
end.
it takes me a while because I watch one, series at a time. That's
Well,
what I
yeah, yeah.
do. So but
Fantastic.
everybody, tomorrow night we have Preston Dennett, Dolly Saffron coming on UFOs over the Niagara region, UFOs hidden in the clouds, cityscapes in the skies, underwater, a lot of stuff that just
Mm.
keeps coming up online and such. So we're going to get the scoop on that. And Thursday we welcome for the first time Rosanna Hannes, Roxy Glow, and she's just wonderful. And it's basically going to be an invitation to Star Peace, a vision for peace on Earth. So it's going to be very
Yeah.
uplifting and enlightening in a different way than this show. So I
Marginally
know.
less risky, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking so. I'm
Yeah.
thinking so.
I don't think
Anyway,
we've quite hit a career ender yet, though. I don't think we,
I
we
don't.
came close, but
Oh gosh, yeah. We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mark. Thank you to United Public Radio, 105.3, 107.7. And thank you, Mark. And yeah, look for more Mark. He'll be coming up and he's loaded with archives here with us as well. So,
I,
anyway, guys, thank you all. Good night over the pond and good afternoon here on in the West, I guess you could say. Take care. See you tomorrow night on the Outer Realm, 9
see you
p.m.
again.
Eastern.
Bye for now.